Alright, and now we're finally in the part of the multicolored of the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty pre-release cover cards. This is me just looking over the full set of cards. We've so far gone through all 5 colours and I've given my opinions. And I'm getting a bit worried, honestly. Like, there have been some very interesting cards. There's cards I do want out of the set, but so far the showings of what I've seen have been a bit disappointing overall. Like, there are very specific cards which I think will be good for a longer term, but a lot of these are going to fall apart very fast. Let's hope the multicolored cards can pull it back together. We're going to start off by looking at Samurai Captain, a red-white card. Human Samurai, 4/3 with haste, so costing's a bit high. Even with haste a bit high. Whenever a samurai attacks alone, he gets +1/+0 for each samurai warrior. Okay, so it cares about samurai and warriors, so we saw a lot of white and red. There's a lot of samurai warriors, especially with the goblins. Yeah, definitely the goblins cause that. I think this is actually going to be an okay card, although it's very high costed for what it is. Like, 5 mana is a lot to pay for a just giving haste. Maybe Vigilance might have been a better choice for this card, but just giving everything +1/+0 for till the end of turn for each samurai and warrior you control could turn the favours, given how like low costed some of those goblins were. Colossal Sky Turtle. Oh, this one's even more expensive. Green, green, blue, and 4. Jesus. What's that? 7? Yes. Enchantment Creature Turtle. It's got flying. Relevant. Ward 2. Okay. A little bit of protection. Oh, it's got 2 channel effects. Okay. So it's a 6/5 normally, but I'm guessing you want to play this more for its channel cost. Green and 2. Discard it. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Not fantastic. The blue version is blue and 1, discard it, return a creature card, specifically to its owner's hand. I mean, in terms of creatures, it's super expensive. Like, it could be a bomb drop in limited for playing green-blue, but there's that one card which I really didn't like, which cared about cards returned to hand. So, returning something to hand, there's better cards for all that. Ward 2 isn't good enough protection. Like, sure, paying 2 more to target it, but there's cards which target everything, which ignores it anyway. And returning something from your graveyard to your hand isn't super good, so I don't like this card. I don't think it's super great. In Juju's Uprising, red, white, and X. So we've got an X spell here. Create X Samurai creature tokens, 2/2s, which gain Menace. So X must be equal to number of like X you pay into it. So it's surprising they don't explain that one. Usually they spend way too much time explaining that stuff. And each opponent creates X -1 2/2 samurai tokens with vigilance. What? So you and your opponent create an army of samurai, but your opponents make 1 less. Huh. I don't know how to judge that. I mean, there's a card which cares about when creatures enter battlefield deal damage to stuff, so giving your opponent stuff which deals damage to them could be funny. Maybe a goad strategy could make this hilarious, but Boros doesn't tend to goad. This is just really weird. Like, unless you have a way of removing your opponent's creatures early on, or you have a way of using them yourself. I mean, yours gain Menace, theirs gain Vigilance. So they are different in that regard. So they have to spend 2 of their resources to block each one of yours. So if you spend 4 mana into this, like, you create 4 samurai, they create 4 samurai, but they can only block 2 of them because of Menace's effect. I don't know about this card. This is super weird. This feels like the kind of janky card I want to try recovering and figuring out something to do with. I may have to come back to this one on a later video. Infusing Mecha Haunt, I don't know how to even say this card. Blue-red, Goblin Artificer. Artifact spells cost 1 less to cast. 2 mana, 2/2 flying, decently costed, reduces cost. Yeah, that's decently okay. Like, I would say that's good. Like, that is just a good card, because everything which reduces things by 1, like for artifacts, is usually around this cost, and being a 2/2 flying body, so an evasion card, is good enough. Gloom Shrieker, green, black, and 1, Menace card. Whenever it enters the battlefield, Return target card from graveyard to your hand. If it would die, exile instead. I don't think this is good. I think this is kind of bad. Like, sure, enters the battlefield, return something through graveyard. There's been plenty of black cards which do that. There's plenty of green cards which do that. The fact it exiles itself is dumb. Grease Fang Okuba Boss. White, black, and 1. Begin your combat on your turn. Return target vehicle from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end. See, this is a better card than Gloom Shrieker. This literally comes into play. You can recur at the beginning of combat a vehicle card to the battlefield with haste, so you can basically bring it in and pilot it, and then that vehicle goes to your hand, not the graveyard. And then it doesn't do any of this exile when it dies malarkey. That is really good. I actually think that is a really cool commander idea too. So that could be really good for commander. That could be a really good, like, actual running commander. Hitogetsu consumes all black, red, and 1. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. So destroy all tokens. That's kind of cool. Exile all graveyards. Useful effect. Exile Saga becomes a 3/3 trample. Whenever all consuming deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter onto it. Whenever it deals damage to a player, if it's dealt 10 or more damage, they lose the game. Okay, so it has a lose the game effect on it. That's kind of cool. I do worry that dealing 10 damage with this card is a bit more difficult than it sounds like. Because by the time you get to that stage, despite the fact you can drop this on turn 3, it'll be like turn 5 until it transforms. And honestly, by the time you get that big, like, it only puts a +1/+1 counter on it once. By the time it becomes that big to deal with instant kill, unless you're playing clerics, they're probably already dead. Dawn Crowned. Oh, by the way, I do think it's a good card though. Like, I do like it. I think it's a good saga. Especially that green card which cared about sagas earlier. Crown Dawn is white, red, blue, and 1. Flying Trample. Spell true cost 1 less for each target. Okay. And spell true opponent's cost 1 more for each target. So this actually is really interesting. It definitely looks like a commander card. The only thing which worries me about it is that targeting cards are a lot more specific when it comes to multiple things. For example, the card earlier which said target this card, give it haste. That's targeting one thing, so you would pay 1 less for it. 1 generic less. If your opponent did the same thing, it will cost 1 more. You don't tend to see cards which say target everything, do a thing. You see this damages all targets or all creatures. In fact, best of all consuming here. Good example. Destroy each it uses. So it's not targeting anything, it's just doing it to each. So I worry that second line isn't as relevant as it looks, but I'm probably missing some heavy stack strategies here. So this card is probably going to be secretly very useful, but I don't see a use for it as it stands. Invigorating Hot Springs. Red, green, and 1. When enter battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Modified creatures you control have haste. Remove a +1/+1 counter from this. Put it on any target you control. Activate a source speed and once per turn. So permanently give things which are modified haste. Really good, personally. I think that's really cool. Definitely the style of red green I'm used to. The fact you can move a single counter from it somewhere else is good. A lot of these counter cards, by the way, really good with the Ozolith. I'm just going to say that now. I haven't said it too much, but I think that would be really nice. And the fact it just sticks around, it doesn't kill itself once it loses all its counters. It just has those counters sat there. It doesn't make it a creature having a counter, it just means it has them there to move around. So yeah, I think that's a really good card. Especially at uncommon level, it's really good. Issue 2 Heavens as 1. Red, white, black. Human Samurai. If attack creature causes a Triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. So ninjutsu triggers twice, the samurai's trigger twice. 3/4 for a 3 mana card. Sure, it has 3 different colours, so it's a bit hard to pull out. But I think that's really good. I think that's really powerful. It's going to be really decent in the samurai strategy. It's going to be really good in like multiple trigger strategies, and really good in ninjutsu strategies. Because specifically it's when it's attacking triggers. It's not very often we see on attack triggers being duplicated. I can also see that being used as infinite combos, again, like multiple extra turns with like that one. I want to say it's Boast. No, Boast is the wrong mechanic. It's the one from Amarket, which cares about when something attacks. Exhort, or exert even. Give an extra turn. So that's going to be really good. I think that's a really good commander card, and I think it's going to see play as someone's commander at some point. I look forward to seeing someone's deck with that. Jukoi Naturalist. Enchantment creature, human monk. Green and white, lifelink, 2/2. Very good stats. Enchantment spells cost 1 less. Enchantress card, does what it says on the tin, cares about enchantments. I think that's really good. Okay, I cannot read this next card. It's way too small. So let's get this bigger. This is a Planeswalker. Kaito Suzuki. Black, blue, and 1. It has a generic static, so at the beginning of your end step, if it's entered the battlefield, it phases. So 1 turn protection. +1, draw a card, discard a card, unless you've attacked. So you draw a card and you don't discard unless if you're attacked. So you play it after combat. Cool. -2, create a ninja which can't be blocked. So this cares about ninjutsu clearly. And -7, gain an emblem. Whenever your creature control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a blue or black card. Put it onto the battlefield when shuffle. Well, if I'm being honest, I think this card is going to see more relevance creating a single creature token. The phase out ability is cool. Drawing a single card is good, but I don't think you're going to reach that 7. I think it's too far away unless you like play cards which proliferate, which in the colours this is in is less likely to see. I think it's good. I think it's really good. If you pull off that emblem, you'll probably won the game. But I think it's also a little bit too high for what it wants to do. And in fact, actually, if you're actually playing this in ninjutsu strategies directly, like it's looking like it wants to be played in, putting things on the battlefield may not be the ultimate best choice. But then again, you could drop your bomb and see what happens. The Kamigawa War. So this is a 5-color saga +1. Exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Bit high cost for just a removal spell. Return 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then they discard a card. Again, bit high cost for that effect, but I do like the fact you do force them to discard a card. The creature better be really good here. Okarachi Made Manifest is all colours, flying trample, dragon spirit for 6/6. So 6/6 for 6. Whenever it attacks, each player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard, return that card to your hand, and gets +X+0, where X is the mana value of that card. I mean, it's a 6 mana 6/6 flying trample, so by itself, like, the stats are okay if it wasn't for being a 5-color card. This feels like it's trying to replace Nicobolus, being blunt. Like, it's doing Nicobolus effects, but for far more than it needs to do. The fact it's full 5 colours and an additional 1 makes it too expensive, in my viewpoint, to actually be playable. I mean, sure, you remove a card, but we've seen cards which just remove something anyway for far less. Returning a card to hand, well, that's what blue's doing anyway in this set. And returning a card to your hand is what green has been doing. There's far better replacements, and honestly, for the cost of a card and how easy it would be to remove, I don't think you're going to get to the point where this becomes a creature. I don't think the creature is super relevant in terms of anything else aside from its stat line. If it was just a creature for that cost, it'd be good. but the fact it's a saga makes this 10 times worse, I think. Close for Silent Spider, Human Ninja, black-blue. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card other than a basic land card an opponent's graveyard. Search out player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name, and exile them. Then that player shuffles. As long as you control this card, you may play one of those cards exiled and spend mana as any colour. So this is interesting. This is a 5 mana, steal all the cards. So, I don't know, steal some from a graveyard, exile it, then cast that for free, but you remove additional copies of it. So you prevent them from actually being able to play additional ones if they have them. This is kind of good because a lot of cards being 4s in these decks can just easily be removed. Sure, Commander's not great, but 5 mana as well to take a card and play it later is not the worst. I don't think it's going to be a Commander by any means. It may see some standard play based on what it does, but I think it's definitely better than just a limited card. Let's see here. Nomi the Pillar of Order, Humor Advisor, legendary creature, black, blue, 3 and 4/4/4. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, and you control an artifact and an enchantment, it's that thing again. You create a 2/2 samurai. I don't think that's good. I'm sorry, but controlling both of those things in the same go is just too much of a tax to actually do stuff. You specifically have to be playing a deck which cares about both of them at the same time. And although yes, there's cards which do care about having both, I think just having to have that restriction in place is more annoying just for a 2/2 creature. Untitled Anvil, red-black, artifact. Whenever one or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield, create a 1/1 colourless construct token. This ability only triggers once each turn. I don't see why it has a hard once per turn. Sacrifice an artifact. Deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. This is so slow. This is so incredibly slow. I mean, sure, you can create like 1 each turn if you sacrifice an artifact. I mean, yeah, I could see it going infinite by sacrificing treasures, but you could have easily resolved that by saying a non-token artifact. I think this is too slow. Way too slow. This is probably one of the weakest Rakdos like punishing sacrifice engines I've seen in a long time. The fact it only does it once, the fact it's a tap card to do it, I think it's just too slow. Prodigy Prototype. It's blue-white. Is this the first blue-white card we've seen? And 1 for a vehicle. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, create a 1/1 colourless pilot where this creature can vehicle power 2 or greater. Nice, simple. It doesn't need to be piloted itself to do this. It's a 3/4 by itself. It doesn't have any of the keywords on it, sadly, but it creates pilots to pilot your crews, and it's a crew 2 to start with, so it's good in artifact vehicles. Like, I think that's just a good card. It creates the creatures needed to run the deck. Riolu's Storm's Edge is a red, white, and 2. First strike. Whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. Okay, yeah, literally as we were talking before, the other card above it, which cares about triggering effects twice, like, yeah, this gives you an extra turn, or an extra combat. Sure, it's only once, but technically you can make it twice, and there's other cards which gives additional combats. This is really powerful. This is stupidly powerful. Extra combat phases are always powerful. And the fact is, any samurai or warrior attacks alone, it doesn't have to deal damage, it just has to attack. So yeah, you can attack with one thing and then just do it again. There's that white enchantment I haven't been talking about from an older set. I think it was Ravnica, which powers up things attacking alone anyway. That's going to be really good, really powerful. I'm actually scared of that. That's actually really scary. The fact it can do it just as it comes in play too, because it doesn't care about itself. That's actually really cool. Resona, Arsai Commander, red, white, 1, human samurai. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if it doesn't have an indestructible counter on it, put an indestructible counter on it. whenever combat damage is dealt to you, remove an indestructible counter from this. So this thing is a human samurai with haste, which when it deals combat damage, it becomes indestructible, but when you take damage, it's no longer indestructible. Weird. Very powerful, but very weird. For 3 mana, that's really good. With haste, it's really good. And just being harder to remove makes it decent because it just becomes a blocker. Yeah, no, I think that's really, really good. I can see it being a commander, but it's really weirdly worded. Satoru Uzumazawa is the... Oh, this is the commander ninja everyone's been talking about. I think I have seen this card, I think. This card is going to be horrible to deal with. So, whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, the rest to the bottom of your library. This only triggers once per turn. Sure, once per turn, hard once per turn, that doesn't matter. Each creature in your hand has ninjutsu cost of black, blue, and 2. This is a black, blue, and 1 creature, which gives everything ninjutsu for 4 mana. This thing is disgusting and horrible, and I'm terrified, and honestly I'm probably going to be very bored of seeing it. Because what it does is that Eldrazi, Blightsteel Colossus, anything like that, just enters. Ends the game. Infinite combos, end the game. Just, you could put them into play. I think it should have read that I think this bit should have had the hard once per turn, not the other half. Or in fact, both should have, but still. This is probably one of the strongest cards going to be printed out of this set, and is going to be the most played commander for a while. For CDH, for regular EDH, because I reckon it's probably not going to be a card to get hold of. It's going to be very heavily played, and it's going to get very boring very fast. I'm not going to deny it's probably the most powerful card out of this entire set. But I don't like it just because of how stupid strong it is. It just feels like it doesn't belong. It's going to be a card which is probably going to be hit by a ban because it's just too generically good. I mean, yes, Blightsteel Colossus is a $50, $60, dollar, whatever card. Like, it's stupidly expensive. But if you just play it to win the game immediately, yeah. Sasuke the Living Law is a green-white 2. Green-white. There's not even a 2 there, I'm just read it as 2. Put a law counter on Saga you control, activate only as a sorcery. When it dies, choose 1. Return a Saga to the hand. Return a Saga to the hand. Okay. Wait, what? Return a Saga or creature control to its owner's hand, or return one from graveyard to hand. Okay. I misread that one. Very slow. Sorcery speed is annoying. The fact it cares about lore counters and actual cards like that is kind of cool, but we had Historic for that effect. It could be a 99 card, maybe. I don't think Green-White cares enough about its sagas, because it feels like Red got the best treatment when it came to the sagas. But Red is definitely going in the hit hard fast direction. I don't know. I feel like this is it's an okay card. It has a cool effect, and it has a death effect, which is relevant. So yeah, I can see it being playable, but it's not a commander like running the deck card, I don't think. Unless you really, until they print better cards. Plus, it can't even play the 5-color saga, which probably would be its win con. Still the Third Master, Rat Ninja, blue-black, ninjutsu. And ninjutsu abilities cost 1 less to activate. So Saratoga Guards already happy with that one. Other ninja rogue get +1/+1. It's just a lord. I don't see a lot of reason to ninjutsu this out, purely because it is just a good ninjutsu card in the first place. But the fact it has it is cool. The fact it's a lord for it is cool. And the fact it reduces cost is cool. I think this is really powerful. This is probably going to be an auto-include in any ninjutsu deck because it just does what it wants. Makes everything cheaper. Makes everything faster. In fact, it's not legendary. Standard's going to love playing 4 of these in one go. Ooh, what is this one? Spirit Sisters, cool. Beginning of your end step, choose target permanent in your graveyard. You may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. And if you do, Return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, when it leaves, exile it. Okay, that's kind of cool. That is actually kind of cool. So, black, white, and 3. Basically, you can sacrifice a card on the field, return something else from your graveyard into play, but that card will then permanently leave once you remove it. So you just, in your end step, you just get to swap out a card in your graveyard. I like it. It's very powerful. That's very cool. It's probably going to be a bit too slow for some stuff, but it's going to be very interesting. Okay, this is another card I was spoiled on, and this is something which is very weird lore-wise. I want to know more about the story here. So, Tamiya Completed Sage is a legendary Planeswalker, but her cost is interesting. It is blue, green, and Phyrexian blue-green. And 2. So Phyrexian mana is an older mechanic, which we haven't seen in a very long time, which instead of paying that blue-green, you can give up 2 life instead. However, it looks like they've added a keyword to this, so completed. So you can, it explains how it works, but if you use this instead, it enters with 2 less loyalty counters. So you can pay it for cheaper by using your life, but it gets smaller. It's a 5 loyalty Planeswalker if you play it for hard cost, with +1, tap target artifact or creature, doesn't untap, remove X number of loyalty counters, to exile target permanent with X from your graveyard and create a token copy of a card, and -7, create Tamiya's Notebook, which is a legendary colorless artifact with spells you control. Sorry, spells you cast cost 2 less and tap it to draw a card. So in terms of it being a Planeswalker, this is really cool. Like, this is actually very strong. Like, if you play it for its less cost and have it come in as a 3-mana Planeswalker, tapping a card down is still good. Recurring a card from your graveyard is still decent. I don't think the -7 is going to be super great because it's not a emblem. If it was an emblem, that would be much stronger. The fact it's actually just a artifact which comes into play is weird. But the fact it's a Phyrexian mana is the weirdest thing to me, because this thing is filled with story lore and things which is going on in the background of this world, which I am now very curious on what the heck is going on. Because what's the alternate? Ooh, that alternate art is cool. Can I get that to load? Yeah. Basically, Phyrexians are machines which corrupt people, and Tamiya has already been possessed once by an Eldrazi in the story, and now she's being possessed by an ancient force which is causing chaos. Ginger Tactus is also Phyrexian. So we might see more of a story and a new storyline come by. And when new storylines come by, we get more powerful cards which care about that too. But with that in mind, this half has been really interesting for the colours, multicolored stuff. I feel like red-white has got the best cards in terms of just standard playable sets. I can't deny the best commanders in here, the strongest commander, which is Umezawa here, because that thing is terrifying. I feel like black-white has been very damaged. I feel like I only saw one card, which is blue-white. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Multicolored has been very limited. So I guess since this is an artifact carrying set, an equipment carrying set, I guess finally we want to cover over the artifacts. So that will be the final segment when we get around to it. Till then, yeah, I'm very interested in the story-wise because of Tamiya. Tamiya has been a very interesting character. I wasn't playing around the set she was in, but I was at least aware of the story going on. I don't feel like a lot of the cards... I feel like Tamiya is specifically a lore-based card, so her colours don't match what the colours of the set want to do. I feel like blue-black and red-white have been the mainstays of what this set really wants to show off, and everything else has just been kind of left at the sidelines a little bit at the moment. So let's cover over the colourless cards, and then we'll call it the Kamigawa set done, and I'll give my final overview.